Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to NEWSPASTY. With me, your host, Johnny Vedmore. And what are we here today? BBC News. What's this? It's a person standing next to a Christmas tree. Because ding-a-ling, it's Christmas. Must be good news. Has Santa come early? Has he bought a present for the world? Has he? Has he?
After days of argument over the precise wording, the United Nations Security Council has passed a resolution on the conflict in Gaza, calling for the unhindered delivery of humanitarian assistance, but stopping short of supporting an immediate ceasefire.
Oh, what a surprise! We want cessation in hostilities. Um, but don't worry, you keep doing the genocide for the time being. Just for the time being, we'll do it because the Americans are pressuring us, and we're going to pretend we're doing something because we're the Security Council. It offers no security for Gazans. They don't get any. Palestinian people don't get any security. That's silly.
Instead, it urges the creation of the conditions for a cessation of hostilities. 13 council members.
Oh my God, they're talking about, what would cause the cessation of hostilities? Well, abruptly cold weather and a death ray from the moon that would blow up the earth. I mean, I'm just saying that the Security Council have a limited number of tools at their disposal and plans drawn up for such a possibility.
Members voted for it, with the US
Lasers
and
on the
Russia
moon.
abstaining. A UN agency has warned that Gaza's entire population is at risk of starvation.
Oh, brilliant. They warned it the whole thing, and they just managed to just scrape for a resolution. The whole of the population is starving. Why? Because it's a modern Holocaust. Because it's a second Holocaust. We're watching a second wiping. I'm watching Israelis, IDF troops, women who are dancing and saying, ha ha ha, I killed Palestine. I just killed them. Yeah, I shot them. And loving it, smiling, enjoy. We're watching a Holocaust. We're watching one people who have been brainwashed so that their fighters and their forces are willing to murder women and children without remorse. That's what we're watching. We're watching a real, complete, and utter monstrosity emerge, which isn't going to be in a few years. You're not going to be able to deny any of this. This is a monster. This is a monster. They've created a monster. It's a genocidal. This is a Holocaust. And it's not the second Holocaust because you had the Celtic Holocaust back in the day as well, didn't you? When the Celts took Rome, and held it for a while, one of the only people to sack Rome, one of the only peoples to sack Rome, and then they just left, and then the Romans were like, right, we got to destroy all of them, kill them, do it. That's they were just Palpatine in it. Here we are, though. Here we are, another Holocaust, just another Holocaust.
In a moment, we'll be reporting on the situation on the ground in Gaza. But first to Washington and our correspondent there, John Sudworth. John.
Well, the mere fact that there is an agreement is, for many people, Rita, a success in itself. Diplomats.
Right, well, there's talking out the side of your mouth. If you go and work for the BBC and you're stationed in Washington, you have to talk out the side of your mouth. You're not allowed to talk out of your mouth. You have to talk out the side of your mouth.
Ahead of the vote today, speaking of the dire humanitarian need in Gaza, and that concern is certainly front and centre of this resolution. But it is also undoubtedly a compromise. The US making its position clear through days of torturous negotiations that there was no point demanding that Israel stop fighting or that it.
So there you go. I mean, that's the basic. There's no point in demanding that Israel stop fighting because we don't want them to stop fighting because what they're doing. What is it, like 20,000 dead? That's what this is called. Hamas says 20,000 dead in Gaza as UN resolution offers more aid. Now, just as a title there, Hamas says. So They start off by saying you should discount this figure, though the figure is true. So there's probably around 20,000 dead. It's fair to say 20,000 dead. It was, what, 3 weeks ago, something like that. It was already over 10,000. So it's not a surprise with the level of violence happening in Gaza right now that 20,000 have died. But they've put Hamas says, because other people have said that too, but they want you to say, "Oh, well, I can't. I have to discount some of those dead, and it's not as many as that, so it's not as bad because it's Hamas who said it, and they're the enemy, aren't they? They're the enemy. They are. I mean, they're the enemy in the sense that they've been made. They're the antithesis of another enemy. All of it is murder."
Give up its insistence on screening and monitoring the aid going across the Gaza border if it has simply no intention of doing either.
Sírvanse levantar la mano.
After the long drawn-out diplomacy, the drafting and redrafting, finally the moment of truth.
I don't know what the moment of truth looks like in this anymore. Do you know what the moment of truth looks like? The moment of truth, that they all raise their hands and compromise, because this is a compromise. So the moment of truth, they big it up like, oh, look, it's an amazing thing. They got this camera in the center and this little circular table where all of these people decide how quickly to allow these kids to be murdered. How quick do we want these kids to be murdered?
The wide show of support from most Security Council members was no surprise.
The resolution the UAE has put in blue this morning responds to the calls for a sustainable cessation of hostilities and a massive scale-up of humanitarian aid.
All of these Arab countries should be completely ashamed of themselves, completely, including United Arab Emirates, who are just they should be pushing forward some form of boycott of institutions that don't change like this. You know, what's the point of having a UN Security Council if they're just going to ignore the plight and continue to say, "Oh yeah, keep." I mean, the idea, the term Security Council isn't the Peace Council, is it? It's not like this is the World Peace Council, because that's what we see them as. Oh, what are they doing? Stopping wars around the world, trying to get them to peace, trying to go. They're not. They're just trying to say, okay, well, we need to do our security, the UN security, in this way. So at the moment, UN security is Israel attacking Gaza and killing women and children without like indiscriminately. So it's a Holocaust. They're part of a Holocaust. They're a function that allows this Holocaust of the Palestinian people to happen. This is a vile situation we're in. If people don't realize how serious it is, then, you know, we may never get out of it, because this is so serious.
Often, in diplomacy, the challenge is meeting the moment in the world we live in, not in the world that we want.
All eyes were on the US and Russia.
Abstenciones.
In the end, they both abstained. But it wasn't a veto, and so the resolution passed.
So I just don't, you know, this is disgusting. The United States, I mean, you know, they try and tick all the boxes, don't they? They put a black woman as their representative of the Security Council, and she raises a hand for the white man. There you go. You know, that white man, what, Joe Biden, completely senile, doesn't know what he's doing, or like everybody pretending that's not the way it is. This is awful. Almost as awful as that Laura Ashley wallpaper they got behind.
On the ground, its immediate practical implications may be limited. The US did much to tone down the language, motivated by what it sees as Israel's right to keep fighting. So the call for an immediate ceasefire has gone, replaced instead with a call only for the conditions that might eventually lead to it.
Yeah. Oh, Man, what's the wording? It's not even, it goes round in loops and loops and loops. We're not calling for a ceasefire. What we're calling for is everybody to give each other chocolates for a little bit as they shoot each other, and maybe they'll start to like each other a little bit more. What we're asking for is more TikTok dancing for a while and, and a Holocaust. That's what we want.
And the insistence in earlier drafts that the United Nations take control of the delivery of aid has also been struck out. The final version now talks of consulting all relevant parties. As always,
and
the geopolitics...
The aid that goes in there, where what happens? It gets put in, it gets distributed, and then they get bombed and destroyed. This is obviously, I mean, I would think the Russians are dancing about this. They sit next to the state of Palestine. Like they put the state of Palestine. And the state of Palestine is pretty bad at the moment. It's a right state. But the Russians, you'd think they'd be criticizing everything.
Politics were never far from the surface.
Oh, so you want to call it politics?
With Russia describing the US as shameful for not...
Wait a minute.
As always, the geopolitics were never far from the surface.
And so that is one of the most idiotic reporter lines. He's sitting in the UN Security Council with all of the nations round, and he says, as always, geopolitics is just... What? Of course geopolitics is just around the corner. You're in the bloody UN. What type of... You don't even think about what they say. Oh, geopolitics is just around the corner. I'm in an ice cream shop. What are you reporting on today? Well, as always, ice cream is just around the corner. Oh, we wouldn't have expected that from you reporting from an ice cream shop. Geopolitics, it's a way of saying, oh, look, Russia were being political about this. Political? What's political? We don't agree with Palestine being ravaged by a heartless IDF force. My God. Geopolitics. Oh, he's just playing geopolitics again on the BBC.
With Russia describing the US as shameful for not calling for a ceasefire. The US, in turn, dismissed that.
No, not shameful. He should have said complicit. He should have said planned. He should have said they probably sat down in intelligence services before October the 7th and talked about this plan. Americans and Israeli intelligence services. Because there was something really that did not smell nice about October 7th, didn't it? The way suddenly this network of security just dropped all on the same day, and they pretended that they've never been listening to the other side, and they had no chance of it, no expectation that this was all going to happen. Oh, it suddenly happened. We just left our borders open for a little bit, which we never do, just on this day, just at this time, just to allow in a group of fighters, which was originally created by Israeli messing around in Palestinian politics to try and stop socialist Palestinians' political movement rising. So they created the person who ended up forming Hamas. And Israelis themselves admit, yes, Israeli high-up officials from the past say, yeah, it was us who created that. They created the conditions for cessation in violence. Well, they created the conditions for the violence in the first place. So we now come to the cessation of violence. But the violence in the first place, what we're seeing is a Holocaust of the Palestinian people. They're being murdered, and they are a people. They've been there for 11 to 15,000 years, those people. Genetically, they haven't left the region. The people of North Palestine are more related to the Syrians, and the people of South Palestine are more related to the North Egyptians. But at the end of the day, they're still people of the Levant, and they've been there for a long time. This is just like, it's a constant
claim, given Russia's actions in Ukraine, and then made
Oh,
clear it
there
had
you go.
lingering concerns of its own.
So whataboutism. Then it used whataboutism. Well, look what you're doing in Ukraine. Oh, you're terrible, United States. Oh, you're terrible, Russia. Oh, you're killing people. Oh, you're killing people. Oh, we're stuck in a cycle where these two countries are the ones in charge. I have. And they're only in charge because of the dynamic. I don't think Russia would be that powerful on the world stage if it wasn't for the fact that United States gives them that power by making them the enemy. Whoever United States make the enemy of the ruling elite is as powerful, becomes as powerful as more powerful than the standard people, the standard.
While we are encouraged that the Council spoke out on this humanitarian crisis,
Linda Thomas Greenfield is representing a history of warfare that comes from military and a white man-led military-industrial complex, and she should be ashamed. But of course, like most people in the world now, she sold out her soul and all of virtue for this.
we're deeply disappointed,
Money.
appalled actually, that once again the Council was not able to condemn Hamas's horrific terrorist attack.
Okay, and what about condemning the terrible things that the Israelis have done? There's 20,000 people killed. And you're like, oh, we still want them to say that 300 people over there were worse. That's the state we're in. We're in a state of fallacy after fallacy, fallacy on top of fallacy, fallacy pancakes all the way down. It's just stupid. This is just stupid. It doesn't make sense that we continue to go around in these circles like this.
On October 7th.
Despite the differences, though, there is now agreement on the scale of the crisis in Gaza and the intent, at least, to do more to address it.
So United Arab Emirates hugs the representative from the one hugs the UK representative. They're like, oh yeah, we're on the same side. We fought against those. This is so fake. This is so fake. These people, United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and all these things, they rely on the money that comes in from the West. They want money, business, other stuff that comes in. They want that ability to go. They're willing to sell themselves out. Everybody here is bought and sold. This isn't infrastructure. We need something different than the United Nations. What they are here, what this is here is fake. None of this. This is fake news. This isn't looking to get peace. This is looking to get the security for the elite. It's a security council for the top in society, not for humans. It's for them at the top. These people who have would, if the technology was available, would make themselves, it would, you could say, evolve themselves further into a state of transhumanism. Because that's what we got. We got people who want to be above the rest of humans and don't understand anymore. Just don't understand. How can any of these people do this stuff if they actually saw what's going down on the street, kids dying and stuff? It's insane. Violence begets violence. 300, 400, 1,500 people. It makes no difference. 20,000 people. Come on. It's crazy. They can't even see. I know there's relative arguments to be had all over this. Whataboutism, there's fallacies, there's all sorts of things when you make arguments about this. But come on. I mean, be realistic. More people dying. Oh, we've had people die. Okay, we're going to make more people die. Okay. That's not a solution.
John Sudworth, BBC News, Washington.
Well, it is.
Well, in Gaza itself, the Hamas-run health authority says more than 20,000 people have been killed by Israeli forces.
Hamas-run health authorities. So what they're saying is the Palestinian health authorities, but they're saying Hamas-run health authorities because they need to put Hamas in there because that is a way to make you be like, oh, I'm no longer on the Palestinian side. Because it's like, oh, well, but they say that. It's not true. It can't be true because we've been propagandized. We've been given propaganda that anything these evil terrorists say is a lie. But anything the mainstream media say is a lie. They're all liars. Lies all the way round. A pox on both your houses.
And it emerged today that an American-Israeli hostage being held by Hamas, designated a terrorist organisation by the UK government, is
again reminding you. See how they do it? I'm reminding you again. Look, Hamas is a terrorist organisation by the US because it's aligned with racist US and Israeli policies, and it wants to keep the war going. And the war going means that Hamas has got to be recognized as a terrorist state, so that you could say, we won't give legitimacy and talk and go to the table. If you won't go to the table and talk with and gain political resolution, then the other side will always fight and they become the terrorists. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
To have died in captivity. President Biden said he was heartbroken by the news.
Oh,
Middle East
God!
Lucy Williamson.
He doesn't even know what a heart is anymore. He's shriveled up there. Oh, he's heartbroken. Is he heartbroken about Hunter Biden as well? Heartbroken. Is he heartbroken when he lies all the time? Heartbroken. Is he heartbroken at all? No. Joe Biden hasn't got a bit of empathy. The narcissists rise to the top. Come on, look at it.
Reports now from Jerusalem.
My God.
When Israel and Hamas refuse to budge from their positions, the people of Gaza must move instead. With the road to negotiations blocked.
These kids. Look at this. This makes me want to cry. I really mean it. I really mean it. Look at these kids, man. They these girls wake up every day and they put on whatever clothes they can afford or be given and allowed to keep. And they have to live this life. They have to live this life. They're losing their complete childhood. You look at the Western world and all of these Western kids who haven't got a fucking clue anymore how to do the basic things, and they're looking at themselves in the phone and they're going and making funny faces and doing all of that. A little bit older and they're doing even worse. And look over here, these kids have got nothing. They got nothing. I bet you they know more than most Western kids. They know more about everything because they've had to suffer. They've had to suffer. The thing that war and instability brings you is education, especially when you're young, way too early. Look at this. This is like something of the past. No cars, nothing like this. This is just people with donkeys, and this is one side is Israel with their massive missiles and the other side is this. Open your eyes.
The war roams free. Bereft camp, the latest target for evacuation warnings.
Oh, no.
Some, like Jihad, had fled here to escape the fighting elsewhere.
They love choosing a name like Jihad, don't they? Hey, like this guy, he's poor fella. I mean, he's probably had to he's spent all of his life at war. Can you imagine what it's like growing up in that? People say, oh yeah, but they've been propagandized against the Israelis. What, the people who have got them in a living, breathing jail cell? They've turned their country into an encampment. You get born into that and you wonder why they hate them. I mean, really, these people have had to live with no freedom, and grow up carrying things on their back all the time. He knows. I'm not surprised there's so many resistance fighters in Palestine. Are you?
The situation inside the camp is dire. People are dying, others are evacuating. The conditions are extremely challenging. There's a shortage of blankets, clothes, essential items.
Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, one of just 9 still functioning in Gaza. The Palestinian Red Crescent says epidemics are taking hold because of a lack of food and medicine. Maheda brought her son Zaid here, suffering from a lung infection.
Oh, kiddo. Oh. I hate watching this. That is so sad, man. That's so sad because that's the truth of it, isn't it? Well, they're bombing, fighting, bickering. It's kids like this, man. It's kids like this. Look at him. I
Blood clots and convulsions. He spent 18 days in intensive care.
Nowhere is safe, nowhere is clean. I'm in despair because there is no solution.
Oh man, I can't
Even
even
if my
imagine. You know the impulse of being a mother. Can you imagine what that's like? Um, to live in a war. Can you imagine how stressful that? I mean, you think about it for the kid, it's stressful, and we think about it, and I'm there, I cry for the kid, and this poor woman has to go through a terrible existence. I mean, a terrible existence. Um, she must fear for her kid constantly, fear for his life constantly, not know what to do constantly. How brave have you got to be to live and continue to live? You know, all the people who give up, there's loads of people who give up, and in the West, it's full of people who give up all of the time. This woman, look at her.
child is okay, there is nowhere safe for us to go. Even the
Oh,
hospital
God
is not
bless you.
clean. I don't know where to turn. I'm exhausted, and my child is slowly dying.
Oh my
You and
God.
I.
Listen. I mean, understand what's going on here. That's a reoccurring theme all over Palestine. Is that there's a load of ladies who are crying about the fact that their kids are dying. And we got to create a stability to have a little bit of a cessation environment. No, you need to denounce and decry what's currently happening, which is a Holocaust. This is Gaza was made into a prisoner of war camp, and the Gazans are being systematically murdered. They're not being allowed out on any side, and slowly, block by block, they're destroying the entire infrastructure and stating clearly. Many of them are stating clearly that they're going to put up settlements there. So it's all about occupation. If you put someone in a camp, if you create an entire area into a camp, and then you systematically murder those people, that is a Holocaust. That is akin to the Holocaust of World War II. That is akin. The same. This is the same thing. And it's happening right now. And in the future, we'll look back and say this was the most terrible thing, and we should have stopped it. Just the same as people said back then afterwards, were said afterwards, and back then they were just like, well, we've got to come to the point of saying this, that, the other, the other, the other, the other, the other. There is a obvious issue here. You know, one of the things that I come up in research here and there is that they had the choice. The British had the choice to try and destroy train lines. They knew what was going on. They knew what was going on during World War II. They had the choice to destroy the train lines to stop the Nazis from being able to transport people to the concentration camps, destroy the chimneys, bomb the infrastructure that allows for murder. And they didn't do any of it. And they didn't do any of it on purpose because they knew that it would be heartbreaking and it would allow for them to create a new world from the heartbreak. That's what they do. They'll destroy and destroy, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, we can revolutionize this area now with our industrial tech, or we just destroy it again." This is systematic. There is no doubt at all. There is no doubt at all. What we're watching here is a genocide that is systematic, tactical, is perpetrated by an abused child of a nation state, Israel. It got abused. It came into existence because of its abuse, and it's become the abuser at a scale which is horrific and public, and everybody needs to do something about it. Everybody needs to be up in arms. Everybody needs to think that in the world, what we want is a woman to wake up with a kid, feed a kid, take a kid to school, pick a kid up, feed a kid some more, put them to bed, go in that circle and live life. Not this destruction, heartache, pain, inability to feed your child, inability to keep your child safe, inability to get medical help for your child. This is so sad.
Analysis suggests that 2/3 of northern Gaza has been destroyed. Seen from space, researchers say, Gaza
Two-thirds.
is now a different colour and texture.
There you go. That's not about getting Hamas. Are you kidding me? What? Well, this is the Holocaust. This is the Holocaust. This is the Holocaust now. It's not the other one. The other one was over 75 years ago. It's 2 generations have passed. We are now in a different world. This is what we will remember in the future. The World War II will drift away as a distant thing, as distant as the Napoleonic War is now. Think about that. How do you feel about the actions in the Napoleonic War? How do you feel? How do you feel about them? Go on, tell me. Tell me how angry you are about the actions during the Napoleonic War. Because that's detached from us by such a large distance, so we just forget it. And that's the same. What about the Crimean War? How do you feel about that? You get to World War I, you start to get feelings. Get to World War II, you got loads of feelings because it was within 2 generations. And the generation making media, while we grew up, were the ones who experienced it. So repeated that over and over again, made it into movies, made it into series. Our kids and their kids will remember this as the Holocaust. We'll remember this as the most disgusting example of humanity. We'll remember these guys as the Hitler of the day. Not these guys who are up here, but, you know, the IDF will be remembered in the same way the Nazis were. And Netanyahu will be remembered in the same way Hitler was. You just don't realize it yet. You don't realize it because we're not distant enough from the other Holocaust to realize this is the Holocaust, because we're simple folk, aren't we? We're simple, but this is what this is. In 50 years' time, this will be much closer to that generation than World War II ever could be.
Israel says the war in Gaza will continue until Hamas is destroyed.
Did you see that indiscriminate?
Israel says the war in Gaza will continue until Hamas is destroyed.
They don't.
Israel says the war in Gaza will continue until Hamas.
You can't tell if there's even any fire coming out of, and that window they were firing at. It would be. It's right on the corner of a building. Have a look at this. Have a look at this. I mean, think about this strategically. Let's go back a little bit. You see that tiny little window they're firing at in the corner? How, if you wanted to shoot people from that window, what would you be doing? You'd have to stand, like, contort your body in a certain way. You'd have to be like the Flophouse in Martin Luther King assassination. You'd have to be like bent over, kneel down, thing out the window. You'd be barely able to aim. They're all firing at that window. We don't even know. All we get to see is them firing just randomly at things. We don't see anything of violence in return. All I've seen no firefights between people on this stuff, and seen none of that. What I've seen is them moving into places they've already completely destroyed, firing at them. The Israelis just firing at things. That's all I've seen. The Israelis shooting indiscriminately. It's a Holocaust. It's a genocide. They're going inside the camps and they're killing people.
Israel says the war in Gaza will continue until Hamas is destroyed, that it's killed thousands of the group's fighters, unearthed vast tunnel networks.
Okay, he's killed what, like 2,000, 3,000 of his fighters and 17,000 civilians. Is that? Can we have a figure? We can't get the figure from the IDF, can we? And because it won't be true at all. And a lot of it is like, oh, was it a combat kill? Yeah. Or what is it? I killed 2 Palestinians. Dance on TikTok. Oh yeah. What were they doing? I killed 2 of them. I don't care. They deserve to die. That's what I'm seeing out there. I'm seeing a supremacist race going out and murdering people that they want their land. They want to take their land. Land that was never theirs. Land that was never theirs. It was the Philistines back in the day. So it was never there. This is an expansion.
But Hamas rockets are still being fired into Israel. And today, another Israeli hostage was reported.
Oh my God, this flattened, completely flattened. And here you go, this is it.
Dead. Gadi.
So they're gonna report, and then today another Israeli hostage was reported dead. One person was dead. It's called 20,000 dead in Gaza. And they're going to, that's what they do. They constantly bend it back to say, oh, you got to have sympathy for the Israelis and sympathy for sympathy for the hostages is terrible. You know, Israel created a state where that could have happened at any time due to the fact of how they've barricaded these people in the camps, and it's terrible. It's terrible. But everybody knows. Everybody knows what happens when you cage animals. Everybody knows. Everybody.
Haggai, a 73-year-old musician, kidnapped from kibbutz near Oz, along with his wife, Judy. Mohammed was just weeks old when the war began. His grandfather buried him today, along with his mother and father, all killed in a strike on Rafah overnight. The price of war, paid by a baby whose grandfather will never now know peace. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Let's go back to John.
Do you think that any of those men who are burying that baby see this is a just war by Israel and feel that they are they are responsible? Do you think any of them really believe that? Do you think there's one of them, even one, who believes that within that group of guys who are burying a little baby? Is there one of them who says this is the right route? They're spawning hate that you cannot get rid of, hate that is bigger than Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda and ISIS, they were created because of the hate that had come before. The money from CIA and other things were infused into groups to create these sort of entities, and they only could be made and they could only be brought into existence because they recruited people from places which were enemies because of their experience against America and the West. So, this is so sad. So sad.
John Sudworth in Washington. John, if the UN resolution, as you said, has little immediate practical impact, what does happen next?
Well, as so often in diplomacy, Rita, points of high principle have surrendered to realpolitik.
Points of high principle have surrendered to realpolitik. High principle isn't in existence. So there's never in existence a realpolitik, as you call it, which is just America being an authoritarian, a dictatorship to push Israel. If you went to the Americans and you asked them without any coercion, should there be an immediate end to the war in Gaza, the majority would say yes. They elect someone to be representative of them. They elect a load of representatives, senators, congressmen. They elect a load of politicians. They elect a president to be representative of them. And then when it comes to representing them, those politicians don't do the thing that they would do. Go figure.
Is no call for an immediate ceasefire. The UN has failed in its efforts to wrestle control of aid flows into Gaza away from Israel. So, you might well ask that question. What is the point then of this resolution of broad principle? I think in the end,
it's all publicity to make it look like they're trying to do something while all of them are saying, well, we're just going to leave Israel do all of this because, the Holocaust has started and you don't want to stop a Holocaust when it's going. You'll kill the momentum.
For those who say that this has achieved something, the important thing isn't just the agreement itself, but the fact that it now has the backing of really the only outside power that has clout in this conflict. Israel's staunch ally, the United States. And of course, this resolution, although Israel may choose to ignore the letter of it, does have the force of international law. And the U.S.
Oh my God, it does have the force of international law. He tries to push it like this has been a good thing. It does do something. This does nothing. This does nothing. This is just another. If they want to stop the war, they can stop the war. They're not stopping the war. If they want to expose that other people are stopping the war, they could do that, but they're not doing that. What they're doing is trying to keep money in their pockets, trying to keep job opportunities open, trying to become Fulbright scholars or whatnot. They're trying to become all of the little bits and bobs, get all of the organizations, get in all of the clubs, because it's a scam. All of these people are working together.
The US can, perhaps behind the scenes, now use this to pressure Israel, some observers will hope, to do more to minimize civilian...
Again, there you go. He's like, oh, no, it has done that it will pressurize Israel, some of observers hope. So there's hope that it might do that, and then we get there and they don't do it. Oh, well, okay then.
...in casualties, and to work harder to increase those flows of aid into Gaza.
Oh my God. Well, that's it. That's the whole skit. That's the whole BBC skit that they're doing today. I can promise you something, my friends. I can promise you something. What is happening right now will continue to happen over the next years. And one day, Gaza will be all part of Israel. It will be nearly 100% Jewish. And Israeli, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's, you know, it'll no longer be anywhere near what it was before. Hey, it's significant beachfront real estate, isn't it? That's the end of the day. Doesn't matter about the people there. Can you imagine the beautiful seaside kibbutzes that could be put up? Because I tell you, there's a load of people who haven't only imagined it, they've planned it out and they're enacting their plan. And to get that plan to be successful, you've got to commit a Holocaust of an entire people. And sorry for that. Merry Christmas from Palestine. It's NEWSPASTY.